In episode 5, Joyce begs and pleads with Yuri, telling him that she has a family, but Yuri doesn't care. He's got his own family, and with cashing in everything, including Joyce and Murray, Yuri is going to be sitting rich. So as they're tied up, Joyce and Murray are forced to fly to Russia. But during the plane, Joyce realizes that Yuri can't hear them. He's also smuggling jars of peanut butter. So he's definitely not going to hear it if some of those jars fall and break, creating shards of glass they can use to break out. Murray's a little hesitant, but Joyce convinces him that this is a smart move because, after all, Murray takes karate, even if it is against 10-year-olds. So they do that, breaking a jar and starting to try and break each other free. Joyce is able to get the ropes around her arms cut off, but as she's cutting Murray's, she gets caught by Yuri. Yuri backs Joyce up into a corner, trying to get her to just sit down, but she calls his bluff, saying, "What are you going to do, shoot me?" And this gives Murray enough time to break out, showing off some of that karate he's known for, and eventually knocking Yuri out. The problem is Yuri's the only one who knows how to fly that plane, so it causes both Murray and Joyce to have to institute a crash landing in the middle of Russia. The guy they're trying to get is not doing well. Hopper. He was taken to a part of the Contracta prison where they're holding that Demigorgon. Although Hopper doesn't know about that yet. He's only really focused on getting revenge against Enzo. Enzo's attitude is, oh, what are you going to do? I mean, that's the risk you take. But that's not the way Hopper sees it. He starts beating on Enzo pretty good. A lot of the prisoners want him to finish Enzo because Enzo is a former prison guard, but it's just not in Hopper's nature. Also, Enzo is the closest thing to a friend Hopper has there. When cooler heads prevail, Enzo starts scheming on a way to get out. He tells one of the guards that he's friends with that everything they're saying about him is lies, and the American can actually make this guy rich. But when it comes time for Hopper to back his side of the story, telling this guard that, yes, I can make you rich, he doesn't do it. Because of the events that have happened, Hopper is downtrodden. He's also had a lot of time to reflect on his actions. He knows that this has put Joyce in danger. He knows that she risked everything to come get him, and he failed. And to Hopper, this is an uncomfortable trend of selfishness. It started off when he decided to have a baby, knowing the dangers because he had worked with Agent Orange in the Vietnam War, and he had seen what it had done to other soldiers who had worked with it. He had a baby anyway, and the baby ended up dying. His wife left him shortly after that, and he was kind of a mess. But then all of a sudden, Elle and Joyce came into his life. He told himself that they needed him, when in reality, he needed them. He now realizes that the minute he sent for Joyce, he sentenced her to death, just like he did with his daughter. Everybody he loves, he hurts. They then hear a large growl, and Enzo tells them, "I have heard rumors about a monster being here from America." Back over in Hopper's old town, Hawkins is having the funeral for Chrissy. As that funeral is taking place, though, the same woman who took over Elle from the transport and convinced the Byers boys to trust that Elle was safe has arrived in Hawkins, Indiana, and the first place she stopped was Eddie's trailer. The men that are with her have some sort of equipment, and they're scanning the trailer. There's one part of the trailer that really piques their interest. Eddie's uncle doesn't know it, but it's exactly where Chrissy's body slammed against the ceiling. It's all dark and decayed all of a sudden, and Eddie's uncle thinks that it's nothing more than a leak, but it's more than a leak. And the woman tells Eddie's uncle, "Pack your things, we're moving you ASAP." But the rest of the town doesn't know about this visitor because, as I said, they're all at the funeral. So is Vecna. Vecna ends up visiting Patrick, the basketball player that is going to be his next victim. In the middle of the service, Patrick starts hearing a grandfather clock, and then he sees it out of the corner of his eye. But all this funeral did was really fire up Jason and the rest of the basketball team. They know that they were double-crossed by Lucas. They've been able to get early pictures from the yearbook, and they see that he is in the Hellfire Club. Their plan for the time being is to find every single member in Hellfire and interrogate them. One of the kids on the basketball team says you should really add Reefer Rick's house to this. He's supposed to be in prison, but somebody spotted him back in his house, and he's Eddie's supplier. Jason adds it to the list, but it's the last place they'll check. And yes, somebody was in Reefer Rick's house, but the people who spotted him had no idea that they didn't spot Rick, they spotted Eddie. And Eddie had to go in the house because he's ran out of food. He radios the group and lets Nancy know that he desperately needs a food drop-off immediately. She tells him to get him food ASAP, but she's got a bigger issue because she can't find Max anywhere, and Dustin was supposed to be the one keeping an eye on her. But when they head upstairs, Max is sitting at the Wheeler kitchen table just drawing a picture with Nancy's little sister. Max shows the pictures to Nancy, and it's everything that she saw in the Upside Down. But Nancy recognizes part of it. She starts putting the pieces together, and it's of a house, and she knows exactly where that house is. And it just so happens to be Victor Creel's old house. The group heads over, breaks into the house, and starts looking around for any clues on Vecna. While searching around, Max finds the grandfather clock, the same one that haunts basically every kid that Vecna visits. They can't figure out why Vecna is so interested in clocks. The only guess is from Steve, and that's Vecna was a clockmaker, but that's a terrible guess. They start moving on to search the rest of the house, but as they're doing it, they get radioed by Eddie, although they can't hear it. They forgot the radio downstairs. And Eddie's freaking out because Jason has shown up at Reefer Rick's place. For the time being, Eddie is safe because he's in the boat garage, but he is concerned. Most of the group is on the 3rd floor, though. While searching around, Steve finds a bunch of mason jars in one of the air vents that seems to have dead black widows in it. And then suddenly, he notices that one is on his shoulder. He freaks out, swatting it away, but he also ends up getting a bunch of cobwebs in his hair. He closes the door and tells Nancy, don't go in there. And Nancy starts helping him out, getting all the cobwebs out of his hair. Robin makes a joke, and Steve tells Nancy that it's nice, that it seems like they both are friends, and maybe after all this is done, they can all go and hang out. Her, Jonathan, him, and Robin. But he also makes it crystal clear that him and Robin are nothing more than friends. A little bit down the hall, Lucas and Max are also looking for clues. But Lucas is able to do something he hasn't done in a while. Make Max smile. As she's about to plug her tape back in, she notices that one of the lamps is glowing. And the thing is, the power is out in the house. As soon as she touches it, it goes out. But other lamps around the house start glowing for a few seconds, and then it seems like it just transfers over to another lamp. They get the impression that they're following something, and it's probably Vecna. And they follow it all the way up to an attic, where the light in the attic is glowing bright yellow. They're all in a circle. Their flashlights are as bright as it could possibly be, and on the Upside Down, Vecna is exactly where they are. But Vecna is searching for something. He's searching for Patrick. Jason, Patrick, and the rest of the basketball team looked all over Reefer Rick's, and they didn't find Eddie. But then Jason noticed the boat garage. Eddie, realizing they were onto him, grabbed the boat and headed into the lake, but he's caught. Jason wasn't going to let Eddie just row away, so he hops into the lake, and Patrick does the same thing. Just as they're about to catch Eddie's boat, Patrick is sucked down below, and then he is lifted up into the sky, and he faces the same death that all the other ones faced. It catches both Eddie and Jason completely off guard. And when Patrick dies, the flashlights back at the Creel place explode. Now, over in Lenora, Mike and the Byers are trying to get this government official to a hospital immediately because he's leaking a lot of blood. The agent knows, though, that he's on his last leg, and he tells the boys, you need to warn Owens. The girl is in danger. You need to find Nina. He then pulls out a pen and tells the boys, this is the number. But before he can write a number down, he dies. The boys end up driving him to a dirt lot with a bunch of abandoned cars that Jonathan and Argyle usually use as a golfing range. Mike and the Byers are taking it pretty well. They're kind of used to this sort of thing. Argyle is not, and Jonathan has to calm him down. After they bury the body, everybody kind of splits up. Argyle goes to write the guy a tombstone with the pen that he gave him. Jonathan is looking at a map, and Mike and Will are just talking about the predicament that they found themselves in and the unlucky situation, because if the guy had just lived one more second, he might have been able to give him the phone number. Now, they might never find Elle again. Mike starts regretting all of his actions that led him to this point. He tells Will, I should have explained myself, because then maybe 11 would have taken me with her and things would be different. But Will points out that at times, it's hard to open up, to say how you really feel, especially to people that you care about the most. And no, Mike is not picking up on any of these signals that Will is giving him. They then overhear Argyle complaining about the fact that the pen that they were given doesn't work. And what Mike can't figure out is why this guy would give them a pen that didn't work. There's got to be more to it. He grabs the pen from Argyle, opens it up, and there is a hidden phone number in it. They go off, find a payphone, call it up, but nobody answers because that number was to a computer. Mike doesn't know where this computer is or what's its purpose, but they need to find it, which means they need a hacker. And there's only one hacker that Mike knows. She's in Salt Lake City, Utah, and her name is Susie. So the boys get in the van and head off to Salt Lake City. But they do have an issue. The agent they just buried, he was the first one to die, not the second. The first one got shot when he opened the door, but he survived. And Lieutenant Colonel Sanders finds him and tears up the buyer's house looking for any clues of 11. And he finds it with the note that she wrote to Mike. So he tells the agent, if you want to live, you're going to tell me where she is. And where she is virtually in the middle of nowhere. It's an underground lab in Ruth, Nevada. Owens and 11 get a ride to the lab, take an elevator all the way down, and it's an old renovated missile silo. Owens, along with a bunch of other doctors, have gotten together because they believe in the cause. They believe that 11 is the cure. You then find out what the agent was talking about when he said Nina. Nina isn't a woman, it's a deprivation tank. But the fact that Nina isn't an actual person isn't the only surprise, because the main surprise is the fact that Owens has teamed up with Dr. Brenner. And when 11 sees Brenner, she takes off running. But she's quickly caught, sedated, and thrown into that deprivation tank. While she's in there, Brenner and Owens can see exactly what she's seeing. And what she's seeing is memories from when she was a child back in the Hawkins lab. She's basically in a continuous loop where she's going to relearn her powers. At first, she doesn't want to play ball. She looks right at a security camera and yells, "Stop this, let me out." And then she notices that in the mirror, she's a child. Through an intercom system, Brenner explains to her that through this system, she's going to relearn her powers. 11 wants no parts of Brenner's experimentation, but she doesn't have a choice. She can't leave. She doesn't realize that she's in a dreamlike state. To her, everything she's experiencing is real. One of the experiments that they do to try to get her powers back is trying to light a light bulb and have it spin around. 11 completely fails at this. She's frustrated, but then she looks down at her hand and it's covered in blood, and she gets really concerned. She then can hear some screaming in the background, and when she follows it, she sees a bunch of bodies. She has no idea how this happened, and she's freaking out a little bit. Owens demands that they pull her out, but Brenner is hesitant to do so. They do end up pulling her out, though. But when she gets out of that tank, she smashes Brenner in the face with a defibrillator and takes off running, trying to escape. She's once again grabbed by a bunch of military types, but this time, when she screams, they fly backwards because some of her powers have returned. Brenner slowly walks up to her, and 11 yells, "Stay away," and throws her hand out. And that's when she finds out not all of her powers have returned. 11 tells him, "I don't understand." And Brenner says, "But I do." She realizes if she wants to get her powers back, she's got to trust him. So she holds his hand and walks right back into the lab. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.